I'm reading the book of Zhuangzi, which is one of the primary Taoist writings of China. I'd never heard of it before. I heard of the Tao Te Ching. Everyone seems to know of that one, written by Lao Tzu. But I'd never heard of the book of Zhuangzi. And I read a little bit of the Tao Te Ching, and I guess I kind of found it maybe a little preachy. It's I should read it again because, I might feel differently about it now. But my memory of it is it was kind of like a how-to book almost, or like the Ten Commandments, except so many more commandments. And the Zhuangzi is a bunch of stories where individual, I think a lot of times fictional sages, that's the impression that I get, or I don't know what the better word for it, masters, I guess, talk about their Tao. And so there's, I don't know, it's stories, it's more of a personal nature, there's humor to it. So it's a bit of a better read for me. But the thing I like about Taoism that I'm learning, and Taoism is in a way very new to me, but I like, there's the Tao, and then there's my Tao, or your Tao. And Tao means way. So there's the way, which is all of this, and then there's my way. Which, my way is any good, it's just part of all this. It's all part of the way. And I think one of the reasons I like the book of Zhuangzi is it's preaching to the choir for me, right? So I'm reading everything and I'm like, yes, that's what I'm experiencing. That's what I'm discovering. That's the way I see things. There's a lot in there about seeing beyond the self, or realizing there is no self, or becoming no one, and how when that happens, there's only just what flows. There's only what flows with no resistance. And that's what's happening here. So, and I kept on thinking of this term, my enlightenment, right? And then I just say this, and I don't have a word for that, although a lot of times what comes up for me is this is all just enlightenment. There's the enlightenment and there's my enlightenment. That's already built into the philosophy of Taoism with my Tao and the Tao. So words have been very important to my enlightenment, or rather figuring out a way to get words out of the way. I spent a good bit of time doing Vipassana meditation. I went to, early on, 20 or so years ago, I went to a 10-day Vipassana meditation course. No speaking, just except occasionally to the instructors, just meditating and learning the technique. And that was a big part of my life for many years. Well, sometimes a big part and sometimes a little part. It fluctuated for sure. But it, when I really began seeking in a focused sort of way, Vipassana just wasn't enough. And I can see, Vipassana is very physical. It's very much paying attention to the senses. And I can see where in a time, a pre-modern time, there must have been so much physical discomfort all around, that, a physical process. That was, for a lot of people, I'm sure, the biggest barrier to enlightenment was just all this physical stimuli. And I think Vipassana is really good with that. It's good at just focusing the mind too, and just, learning mindfulness, which I'm sure came into play later on. But my suffering has been largely non-physical. It's been a lot more mental, intellectual, philosophical, existential. It's been very, very thought-oriented. And so, for me, the philosophical inquiry has been extremely important. And, currently, it's been very mantra-based, or maybe dogma-based, but usually what I call dogma mantras, which was where I would have these, what I had decided were truths, these verbal truths that I would bring my mind back to. Whenever there would be a struggle, or whenever I realized that my mind wasn't focused on that thought, I would bring it back to that thought. And to some degree that persists. Although over time, a lot of those dogma mantras became things that I didn't bother coming back to, because I just knew what I would find. There was no need to bring my mind back to them. And where I am now, and the absolute simplest one, is that whatever arises, whatever I notice, anything that's noticed is a behavior of enlightenment. It is an enlightened behavior. Which is really shorthand for saying it is not an unenlightened behavior. Look at anything that happens, any thought that arises, any feeling, any action, any physical sensation, or any other sensory perception. And can you say that that is unenlightened? And I can't. And then obviously there's no person here who is unenlightened. So then all there is enlightenment. It's completely free. And in being completely free, it's completely structureless. Structures can arise and they can fall. That's very recent for me, that a structure can arise and it can fall. It used to be structures would arise, and I would say, this is my new point of safety. This is what my enlightenment is going to be based on. But only after those falling so many times was I able to say that, no, my enlightenment is not going to be based on any structure. It's based on just that whatever there is enlightenment. And it's very easy for my mind to come back to that. And it's also unnecessary for my mind to come back to that. Because whether it does or it doesn't, that is also enlightenment. And it really, it moves all the other words, all the other thinking out of the way. All the other problem solving, trying to find truth, trying to find a reason for any suffering, trying to answer the question, even is there any suffering? Just quickly, the recognition that whatever thought that is just the behavior of enlightenment. Everything is just enlightened behavior. It just stops the rumination. It brings the mind back to mindful awareness of, all of the sensory perceptions. So yeah.